But I'll tell you what we're talking about. The Rose of Tralee live from the Dome here tonight. Can't wait for it. 17 wonderful girls to meet and more tomorrow night, of course. We need your company and that of Charlie Lansbury. He joins us as our special guest. And we'll see you right after the main evening news for the 1997 Rose of Tralee. Take care till then. What am I talking about? I'll tell you what we're talking about. The Rose of Tralee live from the Dome here tonight. Can't wait for it. 17 wonderful girls to meet and more tomorrow night, of course. We need your company and that of Charlie Lansbury. He joins us as our special guest. And we'll see you right after the main evening news for the 1997 Rose of Tralee. Take care till then.
Now it's time for the main evening news, read by Anne Casson.
British and Irish agree tonight on body for handing over paramilitary weapons. Following McCracken, Fianna Fáil accepts the likelihood of a second tribunal. And Pop Mart comes to Belfast in the biggest ever concert for the city. Good evening. The British and Irish governments have agreed the terms of the International Body on Weapons Decommissioning, which will work alongside the talks process. The agreement was signed after a meeting in Stormont this evening. Afterwards, the Minister for Foreign Affairs, Ray Burke, said he felt the renewed IRA ceasefire was being observed in the spirit and the letter.
This agreement paves the way for the establishment of the International Decommissioning Commission, which will work alongside the talks themselves. It will facilitate the handover and destruction of arms and will have offices in Dublin and Belfast. The body will have at least 2 members appointed jointly by both governments, but tonight's agreement doesn't name them or their chairman. That's because General John de Chastelain, the man earmarked for the job, is also chairing a key strand of the talks themselves, and a replacement must be found. Also missing from the agreement is any insistence that decommissioning actually takes place.
I'd like to see them handed in tomorrow. But realistically, in terms of building the trust and confidence between the parties to get to that position, what we are doing is starting the two in parallel, and then hopefully as the trust and confidence builds and the dynamism of the natural process develops, then there is a chance that that will happen. We can't dictate it to begin with. Previous governments have found they can't.
The Irish government is committed to the total disarmament of all paramilitary organisations. We're convinced that the only realistic means of achieving this is in the context of comprehensive and inclusive political negotiations leading to a lasting and comprehensive political settlement. I appeal to all those parties who share our desire to remove the gun from the politics of this island to join the governments at the negotiating table on the 15th of September as we begin the quest for that agreement.
This agreement represents a small but significant step and will go some way to meet unionist demands that a decommissioning mechanism is in place before the talks begin. The focus will now be on the Ulster Unionist Party, who've yet to decide whether they'll sit down face-to-face with Sinn Féin when those talks begin on September the 15th. Sinn Féin can only be formally admitted if it can be shown that the IRA ceasefire is holding. Ray Burke said today he felt that was the case.
We've had a security discussion on that issue, and obviously because it was security, I'm not going into the detail of it now, but let me just say that I'm satisfied that the spirit and the letter of the ceasefire has been kept.
MOWLAM said she'd announce her decision on Sinn Féin's participation in the talks later in the week.
The Minister for the Environment has accepted a second tribunal to investigate possible political impropriety is now likely. He also said there were no differences between the parties on the issue, and he confirmed that he will be strengthening the law on disclosure of donations to political parties in line with the McCracken recommendations. The Cabinet is due to make a decision on another tribunal next Thursday.
Mr Justice McCracken's report has rehabilitated the reputation of tribunals, and as copies went on sale in government publications this morning, it became clear that whatever reservations they might have had, Fianna Fáil now accepts the need for a second tribunal.
We want to get to the truth of the situation, and we will do that and use whatever means we have to get to the truth of any decisions that were taken. What we have at the moment are a number of allegations or suspicions that something might have happened, and we believe that those suspicions should be allayed and that there should be a full inquiry into that. What we're talking about now is more or less the means by which we do that effectively, how focused we can be in that to ensure that we don't have another tribunal that goes all over the place.
Mr Dempsey says the remit of a second inquiry must be sharply focused, and he has suggested that an initial sifting process, such as happened with the Buchanan report, might be appropriate. The Minister also said he will take into account the recommendations of Mr Justice McCracken in his review of the Electoral Act, but he confirmed that he was still opposed to increased state funding for political parties.
I think that we have the balance right now in that we have a leader's allowance which allows parties to get on with their parliamentary duties, and I think that if people want to fund democracy and want to make contribution to the political parties, that should be open to them as well. The important thing is that that should be done in an open manner.
But the former minister who steered the Electoral Act through the last NOEL says his party will resist any changes to the legislation.
The notion that they advocated in opposition, that somehow it's the right of big business to give money as they choose to political institutions and parties and individuals, is something I think that is not shared by the public right now. I think the public are suspicious of what big business or what individuals get in return for contributions of huge scale.
It's now a virtual certainty that the Cabinet will decide in favour of a second tribunal at its meeting on Thursday. After that, work begins in defining the scope of any new inquiry. The Government will be anxious to seek all-party agreement on the terms of reference in advance of the special Dáil debate on the McCracken report in a fortnight's time. But with the opposition seeking to have allegations about irregularities in the planning process included in any new inquiry, agreement will be difficult to achieve.
The Irish Congress of Trade Unions has said the tax dodging exposed by the McCracken Tribunal represented a crime against all citizens. The country's largest trade union, SIPTU, said the PAYE sector has been betrayed mercilessly. It has also emerged that the Institute of Chartered Accountants in Ireland is to consider if any of its members should face disciplinary procedures as a result of the findings.
The headlines carried in this morning's newspapers echoed the no-nonsense style of the report of Judge McCracken following his investigation into the Dunn's payments to politicians. The outrage, so loudly emblazoned on the front pages of this morning's newspapers, was supported later in the day by the country's trade union movement. With retribution being demanded from so many quarters,